Yuki Kawamura's name has been buzzing on every basketball fan's lips, and for good reason. His sudden rise from being an intriguing prospect in the Japanese basketball circuit to stepping onto the grand stage of the NBA has been nothing short of remarkable. The surprise and awe surrounding Kawamura's arrival are not just because he made it to the NBA, but because of how he is redefining expectations, changing the narrative, and doing so with an ease that leaves people scratching their heads. The tale of Kawamura's ascent is a lesson in persistence, a testament to unexpected brilliance, and a splash of humor, all wrapped up in a story that has made fans stop mid-sentence just to watch him weave his way through towering defenders. But before we proceed further, don't forget to smash that like button and subscribe. Yuki Kawamura did not have the typical NBA-ready profile that scouts drool over. He wasn't a towering forward, he didn't possess the wingspan of a condor, and his jump shot wasn't honed on the sun-drenched courts of Los Angeles or Chicago. Kawamura was born in Japan, where basketball was gaining popularity but still played second fiddle to sports like baseball and soccer. In his hometown, he grew up surrounded by a basketball culture that was still defining itself. While local players had begun to emerge as talents capable of international play, few had cracked the code of the NBA. Kawamura's game, however, was distinct right from his teenage years. He was quick, not just fast, but lightning quick in a way that turned defenders into spinning tops. His ball handling was so fluid that it seemed like the ball was magnetized to his palm. Watching him maneuver was like watching an artist paint and fast forward. It was his audacity that set him apart, with moves that spoke more of a street baller's imagination than a strict regimen drilled into a disciplined athlete. Yet there was control in the chaos, a sense that even when he pulled off a risky no-look pass or an ankle-breaking crossover, he knew exactly what he was doing. And perhaps most importantly, he played with a joy that felt contagious, like basketball was a game, not just a job. Despite his talent, Kawamura's road to the NBA wasn't straightforward. Scouts and analysts often pigeonholed him as an entertaining if impractical point guard who might struggle with the physicality of top-tier American basketball. He was smaller than most players, standing at about 5 feet 11 inches, and weighed considerably less than the muscular guards dominating the league. But there was something about Kawamura that refused to fade away quietly. It might have been the way he'd bite his lip in concentration when his team needed a bucket, or how he'd grin and clap his hands after threading a perfect pass that no one but him saw coming. His attitude made him hard to ignore, even when logic dictated that he shouldn't make it. When Kawamura finally got his break, it came not through a traditional draft process, but through an unconventional pathway that had NBA teams eyeing talent abroad more keenly. He caught the attention of scouts while playing in an international tournament, representing Japan in a heated battle against more favored teams. During these games, he was a revelation, slicing through defenses with the precision of a surgeon and the flair of an entertainer. His name began circulating in front offices, and suddenly, Yuki Kawamura was more than just a local prodigy. He was a prospect worth the gamble. His arrival in the NBA was met with skepticism. Critics leaned on numbers, pulling out statistics that showed how smaller guards historically struggled in the league, where physicality and athleticism often trump skill. But Kawamura had a different interpretation of what was possible. The first time he stepped onto the court, he didn't just play, he performed. There was an electric quality to his debut game, where even the simplest plays felt infused with a touch of magic. The casual fan might not have picked up on every nuance, but there was no missing the moment when he drilled a deep three-pointer with a defender's hand smothering his space, or the way he looked back with a cheeky smile after an assist that left his teammate wide open under the basket. Kawamura's court vision was an element that even seasoned analysts found difficult to put into words. It wasn't just good, it was almost clairvoyant. He'd launch passes at impossible angles, slipping the ball between legs, past outstretched arms, and into the waiting hands of teammates who sometimes looked as surprised as the crowd. When he played against some of the best guards in the NBA, it became clear that he was more than a novelty. He had an arsenal of skills that made him a headache for opponents. The relentless changes of direction, the misdirections, and the calculated risks all combined to form a play style that was as exhilarating as it was effective. Kawamura's style was also laced with moments that drew laughter, not mockery, but the kind that comes when a player pulls off something so outrageous that it seems unreal. One memorable game had him taking on a towering center, feeding a drive before spinning and dropping a shot over his head with a backward flick. The stunned expression on the defender's face and Kawamura's wide grin became an instant viral highlight. The move wasn't even necessary, but that was part of his charm. He played like every game was an opportunity to enjoy himself while showcasing skills that could twist ankles and logic at once. There was a playfulness in his game that resonated with younger fans who saw in him a bit of themselves. Kids began mimicking his moves on playgrounds, practicing the Kawamura spin or the no-look bounce pass that defied gravity. Older fans couldn't help but tip their hats, knowing that it took more than just talent to stand out in a league where raw athleticism was often king. It took guts, and Kawamura had them in spades. Beyond his flashy plays, Kawamura's impact extended into the structure of how teams viewed players from international backgrounds. It wasn't the first time a non-American player had made waves, but Kawamura was unique in how he brought a different style and energy that even seasoned NBA players found refreshing. He forced the narrative to shift, proving that there was room in the league for innovation and creativity that came in smaller, unexpected packages. Defenders who had prided themselves on shutting down opposing guards were suddenly unsure how to approach him. He'd come at them with a start-stop rhythm that seemed as much influenced by a jazz drummer as it was by traditional basketball training. The result was a style that was less a strategy and more an expression of his personality. Of course, Kawamura was no stranger to mistakes, and there were moments when his audacious plays would backfire. A behind-the-back pass intercepted by a watchful defender, a risky drive that ended in a block. These moments were part of his learning curve, but they weren't setbacks in the traditional sense. For Kawamura, they were just reminders to try again, perhaps with an even more outrageous move next time. And it was precisely this resilience, this unwavering sense that each play was another chance to show his skills, that captivated audiences. His teammates initially approached him with a mix of curiosity and doubt. The NBA locker room is a place where respect is earned, and Kawamura's quirky mix of light-hearted banter and fierce competitiveness made for an interesting blend. But as games rolled on and they saw firsthand how he turned half chances into points and frustrating possessions into jaw-dropping assists, they began to trust him. Veteran players would nod in appreciation after he'd drop a pass between two defenders or sprint back on defense with a grin, shrugging as if to say, "Hey, worth a shot." There were implications beyond the court as well. Kawamura's success was sparking discussions about talent pipelines and scouting methods. More eyes turned toward Asia, wondering if there were other potential stars playing in lesser-known leagues who could offer a different flavor to the NBA. His story was a validation for every kid who felt overlooked because they didn't fit the mold, a reminder that there was space for those who dared to play their game, even if it looked a little different from the established norm. Kawamura's influence began spilling into pop culture, where his game highlights became staples in social media reels. Even NBA players who prided themselves on stoic professionalism would find themselves smirking after he'd pull off an impossible play. Commentators found themselves at a loss trying to describe what they'd just seen, resorting to phrases that seemed too vague for a player so vivid. "He's just different," one announcer blurted after a particularly chaotic sequence. And it was true. He was different, and that was his greatest asset. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more engaging content. We thrive on your feedback, so be sure to leave your thoughts in the comments section below. Until next time, keep discovering and stay tuned.